Good afternoon, everyone. So, one of the most common questions people like to ask, they find that how come after I'm meditating sometimes an hour, 2 hours, instead of I'm getting like full of energy, sometimes they feel tired. So because you use a lot of willpower, because sometimes people think that when you meditate, you don't try to focus, you don't try to concentrate. It's not concentrate, Actually, you develop the stillness. Actually, meditation is stilling the mind. The mind becomes still, but it's not concentrate. So concentrate, you're using a lot of willpower, try to make the mind, stay, and forcing the mind, using a lot of willpower to force the mind to stay, to focus on the breath. And you try to do the meditation, you can't do that, You can't force the mind to focus. So that's why there is using a lot of willpower. And you can't use willpower. You can't force the mind, isn't it? Because when you force the mind, you just like putting force and pressure, isn't it? Just imagine, if you're forced to do anything, you have that resentment, isn't it? The mind just don't want to do it, Then some people think, oh, maybe I'm not focused enough. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. So the harder the try, the try very hard, worse, isn't it? You can't force the mind to concentrate. Concentrate is just like your mind becomes like just so narrow, you just focus. It's not. Actually, you develop the stillness, it's stilling the mind. When your mind is still, you have the openness. You'll be able to see more. You have more clarity. But if you try to concentrate and focus, actually your mind becomes, So that's why sometimes like we don't have to force the mind. Sometimes you just sit there, Just sit there and just being in this present moment awareness, just allow the mind be. If the mind wander off, you just aware that the mind wander off, and then you just very gently bring the mind back onto the, to bring the mind back. And this is how you train the mind to stay, and then you just keep bringing back. You have to just keep doing that. And you cannot force the mind to stay on the breath, but you can just keep very gently bring the mind back to present moment awareness, just very gently. Sometimes even though, if you be able to do that, even you'll not be able to focus on the breath, but you still, after a little while, sometimes even an hour or half an hour, very difficult, you find it very difficult to focus on the breath. But if you just very gently bring the mind back, but by not forcing the mind, being kind to the mind, have this a kindness towards the mind. Okay, it's okay. If you go away, come on, mind, come back. It's okay. Please come back. Then the mind will come back, isn't it? This is how you train your mind. So no matter how many times your mind wander off, 100 times, 1,000 times, you keep bringing back, and over a period of time, the mind will stay. This is how you train your mind. And naturally the mind develop the habit, The mind won't wander off very far. It will stay. Because actually, rather than you try to force your mind, actually sometimes leads to lots of agitation and irritation. And then you keep forcing the mind, and then you got a lot of irritation and agitation. Then you ended up that you don't really want to sit at all because the mind is not peaceful, But if you just allow the mind be, and just train the mind, so that the mind be able to know how to come back, and just keep training the mind back to come back. Then the mind won't wander off too far, And even though you sit for an hour, half an hour, hardly you can focus on maybe do a few breaths. But even that, you feel peaceful, isn't it? Because you just observe. Just being the observer, just observe how the mind. Okay. Then you can understand how busy my mind is, isn't it? my mind really want to wander off. This is how you try to understand. How's your mind? How busy your mind? Just by sitting there. So don't try to rush into focusing on the breath, because a lot of people try very hard to try to focus, put a lot of willpower, and they try to do the meditation. You can't do meditation. Don't try to do meditation. Yeah. Actually, meditation itself is stilling the mind. When the mind becomes still, you have clarity. And then, because when you use a lot of willpower to try to focus, actually, you use up a lot of mental energy. It's quite draining. And after that, you feel really tired, and your mind don't feel bright. You don't feel energetic. But when your mind is still, you feel energetic because your mind is not draining. Actually, you're accumulating all your energy, not draining. Is all your energy is not draining. So you become more energetic, and the mind become more alert and powerful and bright. So there's a lot of people try too hard to focus. Don't try too hard to focus. If your mind want to wander off, allow the mind be. Just training the mind to come back. Focus on the breath. And also another thing also that a lot of people just focus on the result. They just want the mind themselves, when I sit in meditation, I just want to be very quickly become very peaceful and calm. But they haven't put in the causes. Why? Sometimes the mind wander off. Why the mind is not happy? So partly the mind wander off because of the lack of contentment, happiness, and also partly also because our mindfulness is not strong. So because sometimes we not be able to catch the mind, that because very easily the mind out of habit, we just wander off and then into thinking. Very quickly we have that kind of react impulsively to whatever thoughts arises. But when you're mindful, you'll be able to catch that. You know that, okay, thoughts arises. Okay, you leave it alone. You bring your mind back onto your meditation object. When you're not mindful, you can easily suck in without knowing, isn't it? So that's why, because the mindfulness is not strong. So if your mindfulness is strong, you'll be able to develop the stillness easily. So that's why it's important to strengthen your mind, especially throughout your whole day, how you do your work, and how you live your life. That is part of it. Is because this is how you carry, onto on the cushion, how you live your life, how your attitude, that is important. Because if throughout, the day you live your life very mindlessly, just rushing from one thing to another. So once you sit down, the mind is very difficult to calm down. It's very difficult. So that's why in daily life, is try to slow down a little bit. So, and especially those habits that you rush from one thing to another, try not to rush from one thing to another, because the habit is so strong. Then when you sit down also, you try to rush onto the breath, try to focus on the breath. This is how your attitude, because this is how we live our life. So try to be more, slow down a little bit. Try to develop your mindfulness throughout the day, moment to moment awareness. And part of mindfulness also, you'll be able to remember the recollection. That's why part of the practice you can apply this in your daily life. That you do recollections, after, like from morning, then when you come back, before you sit in meditation, you recollect what you have done throughout the day. So if you are not mindful, if whatever you do is just out of habit, like automatic pilot, without knowing what you are doing, sometimes we think they are mindful, we are not mindful. It's just because things that we used to do it so often. we don't have to think about it, isn't it? And then we just run like automatic pilot. We just keep doing things, but we are not mindful. So this is how you test how mindful you are. So if you be able to recollect exactly what you have done throughout the whole day, that means you are mindful. So just give you an example. I remember many years ago when I was a trainee nun, so I have to go to the abbot kuti to collect trays, to collect things. And because morning we bring breakfast, with the trays, and afternoon I used to go in there to take the trays. And that day, after that I went back, I tried to, because this is one of my practice, I will recollect, what I have done, Then I just said, I don't remember, did I put back the key? Then I tried very hard to recollect. I remember that exactly, very clearly, that I took the key, I went in there, and I still remember I bring in new flowers. I still remember I put the flowers. I remember I take the empty vases. Everything I remember. But the part that whether I put the key back, that memory missing. I couldn't. I tried very hard. I can't recollect that part. Actually, you know what happened? Because then I realized that, oh yes, because the moment that I came out, I wanted to lock the door, and something pops out. And then I just been sucked into my thinking. So I was thinking something. So like automatic pilot, I put it back without knowing, but been thinking, So then that moment, I'm not mindful. So that's why you lost that part of mindfulness. You lost that part of memory. They say sometimes people say, I'm very forgetful. Sometimes it's not that you really forgetful. It's just like because of you are not present, because we thinking all the time. Whatever thoughts arises, immediately we get sucked in, and then we go on and on and on. So that's why this is a training. Even though you see in meditation, your mind wander off, this is you train your mind to come back. This is how you train, but not using willpower, force to make your mind stay. You can't do that, because then the mind the mind will have this resentment, and it's natural, isn't it? You try to force anyone to do something, you can't force them, isn't it? So you have to be kind to the mind. Say, okay, you can, I remember someone told me that she went to one of the retreats, and previous year that they're very strict, they lock the door, they have to sit for how many hours, you can't go out. And everybody, so many people got sick that retreat, I think a 1 month or 3 months retreat. And then this time, I think they opened the door, said, okay, if you want to go, you go. And when they locked the door, not allowed to go, everybody want to leave. Can't sit long. Then when they opened the door, said, okay, you can go. No one go. Isn't it? This is how, the harder you try, if you try to force someone to stay, they want to leave. But you say, okay, you can go. They don't go, isn't it? And the same thing with the mind. You cannot force the mind. You just allow the mind. What the mind want to wander off, okay, you can wander off, as long as you know how to come back. Yeah. And this is being kind. And then slowly, then your mind will, this is how you're stealing the mind. When your mind becomes still, then your mind stays. And you become really peaceful and really calm. And this is a training the mind to stay still, but not forcing the mind to focus on the breath. Breath actually is nothing so special. It's a breath, it's just like they give you an anchor point that give you the mind something to do. Because breath is something neutral, so that you have something to focus on, that's all. So, and don't try too hard to focus on and when your mind become peaceful and calm, naturally you'll be able to focus, you'll be able to focus on the mind very easily, on the breath very easily. The breath is always there. It's very easy. You don't even have to look for the breath. The breath comes to you, and very easy. The breath You can just sit there and you can just observe the breath. It's very easily when your mind becomes peaceful. They said don't try to rush to focus on the breath, but just spend a little bit more time, okay? So we can just start a meditation now. So just find the most comfortable posture and try to relax your body as much as you could. Just relax. And just bring your awareness, attention into this moment. And aware that where you are sitting, exactly where you are at, and knowing that you're sitting here in this moment and not going anywhere and not doing anything, just happy to be here. Just appreciate this moment. How wonderful it is to be able to sit here and not do anything and just content and happy with this moment. Just relax and at ease and at peace with this moment. Just allowing the mind be in this moment. Whenever you feel peaceful and calm, you just bring your attention onto your breath. going to end the session. So, by counting 3 in and out breath, you can open your eyes. Any questions or comments? Okay, there's a question from Germany. During meditation, thoughts arise that are uncomfortable, annoying, and disturbing. What is your advice to overcome this difficulty and make peace with it? So I find that one of these, because of we don't like it, like yesterday, my talk about resentment, because the more we try to get rid of it and it stay longer. There's like one of the exercise you can do, anywhere you can do it. So when that kind of uncomfortable, annoying, or disturbing kind of thoughts arises, sometimes you can just do the breathing exercise. You're just breathing in, like you feel uncomfortable, annoying, you're just breathing in this annoyance and breathing out peace. Actually, you make peace with that. Because a lot of people try to, because it's uncomfortable, because it's unpleasant. So most people, they have that kind of tendency, and because we also been conditioned that way, we have the tendency to just try to push it away and try to get rid of it. So the more you try to push it, actually it stays very strong. Actually, we reinforce that tendency. Actually, it's become stronger. So you can use one of these, and then also another thing that the thoughts that uncomfortable and annoying, actually you can just replace the thoughts. But usually I don't encourage people to replace like thoughts, because sometimes you can suck it into the thoughts. But I only encourage people to do that unless the thoughts is sometimes too strong, that it's very difficult for you to really to ignore it, or you be able to do that, breathing in, this annoyance, or breathing in these feelings, and then you breathing out, make peace with that. Because sometimes it's the mind is too, the thoughts, and then the mind is very busy, and especially unwholesome thoughts. Some that actually you can replace, like thinking of things that replace the thoughts, like kindness, compassion, and then because when we think of something that is wholesome, it makes us happy, isn't it? Sometimes it's quite inspiring. Like for example, we reflect on gratitude, reflect on some good qualities of another person, or we reflect on our own virtue, that what or I've been practicing, I've been keeping the precept, and yes, and then you appreciate yourself, and that's also you can help with that. But sometimes replacing thoughts, sometimes if your mind is not strong enough, your mindfulness is not strong, it's very easily you're sucking into that thinking, that you start to, instead of really reflecting, actually you start to think, So the best way is actually the best way actually to stay with that feelings. That is the best way. Not to run away. Usually when you have this uncomfortable, annoying and disturbing, you bring your attention to your body. You try to pay attention to your body. How is it? How your body feels like? Because normally when any emotion, the mental object arises, actually that manifests in our body. If you can feel the tightness there, then you just pay attention onto your body, your sensation, your feelings. Then it actually takes your mind away from that, and that's also you can use that. And also, of course, the best is to just stay with the feelings, stay with how you feel. And this is actually a causal object, because if you try to focus, if you try to practice mindfulness on your mind, state of mind, or your emotion, that is more subtle, and it's quite difficult unless your mindfulness is very strong. So that's why it's always encouraged to go back to the causal object, like feeling, sensation, because you can feel how is it, when you're annoyed, and when it's the thoughts that is very disturbing. Usually you feel a lot of tightness, tension in your body. So then the tension and the tightness actually is your meditation object. You just focus on that until that subsides. So that also help to develop the stillness and mindfulness as well. So any questions or comments? No? Okay. Yes. Okay.
So far I know one thing. We born because we don't know that we born. And now we find out, Buddha says, can you explain to me? Now I don't want to born again. And can you explain to me how the way to not to be born?
Okay. So it's quite dangerous when you say you don't want to be reborn. That means you're craving not to be, and you still crave. So I just give you an example. This is a real incident happened, and this is one of my friends, and we used to practice together when I was a lay person. And she practiced many, many years, I think about now 40 years, and then she's become a nun as well. And she be able to recollect her past life. And then she said, I don't want to be reborn again. So then she practiced really hard. She said, I want the enlightened, I want. I want not to be reborn. So, but actually it's still one thing. That unless your mind come to that place, like your mind completely like not doing things, but whenever we think it's still doing, then she wants so much. Then she try harder, she practice very hard, and she become very sick. She got terrible headache because you try hard. Like some people have samadhi headache because they try to focus and then they got headache because of you use a lot of willpower. You can't do that. Like you just pushing your mind. Then actually your mind have to come to that place of acceptance that, yes, sometimes in theory we all understand, let go, this causes us suffering. Usually when people in difficulties, in turmoil, I just want to leave, I don't want to be reborn. I can guarantee you, after when things goes, smooth, everything good, happy, they've forgotten about it. Sometimes the mind's still not ready. So when the mind ready, you don't crave anymore. You stop the cravings. It's just like the practice is, how we can't use the willpower, and we can't by reasoning. You can't. It's just like when we keep feeding our craving, and it's just like you're feeding the craving. It's just like you're keeping nutrients. It's keep growing. It's just like the fire. You know, if you keep adding fuel, it will burn, keep burning and burning. So if we stop putting in fuel, it still burn. But eventually, when it runs out of fuel, the fire will just stop. It's just like the Buddha said, you know, when someone enlightened, you know, it's just like the candles, you know, the fire, just where is the fire gone? So because no fuel, it's just, you know. So actually this have to come from your own yourself, that your mind is really that you have enough, you know, that you really do want to be, your mind is don't have the craving to be reborn, but not by wanting not to reborn. Because if you're wanting not to be reborn, it's still wanting, it's still crave. So, and this person the same, she craved not to be reborn, and she tried to practice very hard. She want to get enlightened, want to be reborn. Actually, she got very sick at some stage that she can't even meditate. You know. So actually, it's not to worry about that. You know, you just keep practicing and keep practicing. And sometimes we don't know how close we are and how far we are. And sometimes it's no point of like, because people like to project into the future, maybe this and maybe that. And that actually just completely wasting our time to think about that. You know, bring your mind back to this present moment awareness, you know, just to be at ease and at peace with this moment. So if you want not to be reborn, it's still wanting, it's still craving. It's still not, your craving is still there. It's just that you crave to not to be reborn. Okay?
It's like a goal, but we don't
want. You can
but just set up.
Yeah, you can have
target.
a goal. Yeah, you can have the goal. Yeah. Then you just keep practicing. That is the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then let go the most. That's the key of the practice.
Yeah. Any more questions or comments? No more? Okay. So going on. Okay. Thank you.